All right, welcome to Soccer's Morning Show. I profoundly apologize for 9:06 because I'm juggling chainsaws. And what we mean by that is that this show is going to fly by this morning. In a perfect world, if communication works and computers work and all that kind of stuff, we'll have Luke Winstel and the Merry Band. They'll come up here in just a sec. Welcome, by the way, to Soccer's Morning Show. Soccer down here. John here, you there. Wall Pass Wednesday. Everything's on the table. Just be ready for anything and everything that's going on. All right, so Luke Winstel and the Merry Band coming up in just a sec. Hoping we are efforting Bart Keeler for 9:30, Soccer for USPOD. And if you check the social media for Soccer for USPOD and Bart, he had some tremendous seats for the France match, and we will discuss that and anything else on his mind. We haven't had the chance to catch up with him since the U.S. match. We'll get into that as well. 10 o'clock, hopefully Dylan Butler can join us. We'll talk about deadline day here in Major League Soccer, all the transfers, who's in, who's out, who's moving, who's not, all that. 10:30, USL League Two. The final is this weekend at Starfire in suburban Seattle. Ballard FC is hosting. We catch up with our friends from Lionsbridge FC at 10:30. So you see all the madness that's going on today. So, yes, bam, Brazil, gone. Canada, gone. USA barely survives. How great is the World Cup? Well, we'll tell you how great the World Cup is. There we go. I see now. I caught Luke. Luke was trying to get in something going on. And so Luke Winstel and the Merry Band have added someone else. We welcome Molly Lee to the show. And Molly is from Macon, and she's a part of the Merry Band of Bulldogs that are down there for the Women's World Cup. For Molly, welcome to Soccer's Morning Show. I asked you in the pre-show if you had your seatbelt ready. Are you ready to go?
I'm ready.
All right. So,
here.
all right. So for those who may not know, what has your beat been, and what have you been able to cover while you've been down there for the Women's World Cup?
So my beat has actually been Brazil. So tough night for my beat here in Australia. But getting to start the tournament off, had a really cool story about how Brazil's president announced that workers at home back in Brazil could actually take time off work to watch these World Cup matches since they're happening in early hours back in Brazil. Yeah. So that's a really cool first story to start with. And then we moved into, after the first match, Ari Borges had a hat trick, and I still think I'm biased, but probably the prettiest assist to the best goal of the tournament so far. So I got to do a feature on her, which was really great. Mm-hmm. And then we've done a little match recap of kind of just how France is still Brazil's kryptonite, or how France is still, Brazil has not been able to beat France yet. They're so close every time and just can't get over that hump. And then that led into a preview yesterday about how, unfortunately, today was Marta's last World Cup match ever. And so it's kind of a preview of that and just what Marta has meant to women's football and football as a whole.
And Luke is hydrated. So Luke learned his lesson from being here the last time. Luke was running out of gas with about 5 minutes to go in his segment. And so I reminded him to be properly hydrated, Molly. And so thank you.
He told me that.
Yeah.
I think we inspired him.
There you go. So for now, Luke, the two of you got to watch the chaos of the day. And legitimately now, as we look at this tournament, Canada's gone. No Christine Sinclair in international competition anymore. And as Molly has written, Marta, who had a fantastic moment after the match on the pitch with Bunny Shaw, Jamaica only scores one goal to advance, but their defense has been stout this entire time. Jamaica moves on to the knockouts, and Marta goes home. This has been seismic in the last couple of days here for women's soccer. Luke.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, it's definitely what nobody expected to have the Olympic champions knocked out so early, and now Brazil, which, just a fun fact, this is actually the first time Brazil has not advanced out of the group stage since 1999, and the first time with Marta on their roster they had not advanced out of the group stage. So some bad history to make. Definitely a tough break.
Definitely very circular when it comes to Marta's career. So, Luke, let me ask you this. When it comes to the day, now Molly's in the trenches. She is sitting there and she's like writing stories and she's trying to do things. You got to kind of be a bit of almost someone who got to be somewhat detached and watch the whole thing happen while everybody else was kind of working. Your perspective on what was going on there with this piece of history that we were watching, and you got to kind of watch as opposed to report on it. What was your kind of detached perspective on all of this?
Yeah, as you said, so Group B was kind of my thing. So as soon as Group B wrapped up, right now I'm a fan. I'm looking to try to advance some of the knockout stages and just see what we can see. So as I'm watching, I thought South Africa's story was super cool about also just knowing for the future that they're a bidder for 2027 for the Women's World Cup, and they've got a shot maybe at hosting that too. So seeing that country go on the rise and score the late goal and the drama, and then almost had the drama with Brazil. And I don't know what to think because, we were watching the game together with a couple of the photographers downtown here in Brisbane, and I was looking at it, and then as soon as Jamaica put in Solai Washington, of course, from Chambly, I'm cheering for her, but I'm also cheering for, Molly's beat to give her some good stories. And I don't know who to root for, so I'm just kind of cheering for whoever's got the ball. That's the best thing I could come up with so far.
It's like they're going one way. Luke's cheering. They're going the other. Luke just likes offense, Molly. I think we figured it out. Luke likes offense. That's all he wants. He doesn't care about defense. He just wants people.
No.
He wants 5-4 matches, regardless of who wins, because it doesn't affect his byline. I know.
You know what? That's perfect because he was watching the France game the whole time we were watching Brazil. France they're down one. Oh, they've scored. Oh, they got another one and another one, like all the way until it ended up being 5-3. So I think that theory is correct.
I'm getting busted here.
You are. All right. So, Molly, let me ask you this about your time at UGA and getting this particular assignment. What have you been pursuing there at the University of Georgia? What interested you about this, what has turned into for Luke and for everybody down there, an opportunity of a lifetime? So a little bit of your background as to what you've been doing at UGA, why you wanted to do this other than the obvious reason of getting to travel and go and hang out at the group stage and cover Women's World Cup, and how you were looking to have this be a part of your resume.
Yeah. So I am a sports management major at UGA, finished my undergrad back in December, and I'm now in grad school for sports management. But I really love sports media, especially the broadcasting side. And so that's how I got into the sports media program. And so I remember the day that our professor sent out this email about the Women's World Cup, and I grew up playing soccer, played it all the way through. Last summer, I worked in Nashville for Nashville SC. I interned with them. I've coached. I've helped with Georgia soccer, like in sports communication. So I've always found myself coming back to soccer, even if I'm not playing it. So when I saw that there was a chance for me to go to the Women's World Cup, I was like, sign me up. Let me do this tryout. Just see what happens. And obviously what happened is I ended up here, opportunity of a lifetime. So I've really just been able to take this experience, and I've enjoyed getting to write stories that are more than just a game recap. It's really challenged me to find those storylines. Luke can probably attest to this. Like, we're being treated like true professionals. Like, we're going to practices by ourselves, to media like availabilities by ourselves. And so we're really just getting a glimpse as to like what this profession really is.
And we had a great time translating German together today as well.
Yeah, and translating Portuguese this whole time. Yep. It's been another step added on.
Okay, all right. So since you've teased that, Luke, go ahead. You can't just do a tease, Luke. You've got to explain as a part of the byline experience and the deadline experience. You can't just sit there and tease. Yeah, we translated German and Portuguese. No, you got to go into that. What happened?
Well, with these,
look at that one.
Yeah, I'll take this one.
Yeah, you will.
Yeah. So basically, we have Germany, South Korea, or Korea Republic, whichever you prefer. I think AP wants us to call it South Korea. We've got that tomorrow in Brisbane. Final game of the group stage. Don't want to think about it because we have to go home the day after. But we've got that one coming up. So Germany and the press conference was our responsibility to cover as a duo. So we go in there, and the way it works, if you don't watch FIFA press conferences in your leisure time, they have this little earpiece that they have for the players, and we'll ask the question in English, and then it goes to a translator. And we found out the translator is actually in Germany, because we asked if we could speak to the translator.
I was like, where are they? And they're like, they're back in Germany. And I was like, oh, okay.
I was like,
can't ask them.
Must be having a crazy, night or whatever with the time difference as well. But so that they're translating to the players. So when we ask a question, we're hoping that it gets translated correctly and accurately, which we were going for today. And we had the question go through. It's a little delay of about 10 seconds. So we're sitting there staring at each other like, I really hope this goes well. Like, I know this is not the easiest process. And we had, a question for coach and player. And then you had a couple of questions for them as well. And have the delay. They answer back. I've got the raw recording in German. And then Molly's trying to work on the English side. And eventually our best bet today ended up being for our top quote. Pulled, I believe, a couple of photographers, right?
I just
Molly's
walked
work.
up to the table and I was like, hi. And they're like, what's up? And I was like, can y'all translate a sentence for me real quick? Yeah. I think they felt bad for me.
Yep. So
they did.
We got it done, and it wasn't the easiest process, but we got some quotes, and then we've had a couple other people, because they translate it live into our earpiece, but they don't post an MP3. So if we don't have it typed down perfectly, or if we don't have it taken like the earbud into our phone speaker or something perfectly, you're not going to get it in English. So we had to pull out a couple of tricks today. Got, Molly to get the cameraman to help us out. So that ended up working pretty well by the end of it. But that's our translation story. I think Portuguese went better for you.
Well, but yeah, and that's the beauty of all of this stuff, is we get to find out things behind the scenes for those of us that don't get to eavesdrop into every single press conference. And it's like, so basically it goes from Australia routed to Germany routed back to Australia, into the microphone, routed back to Germany for a retranslated back into the ears, but not into MP3s. Molly, let me ask you this: since you mentioned you're a big soccer person, where'd you go to high school, by the way?
I went to FPD in Macon, First Presbyterian School.
Yeah, I know FPD very well from the American football side of things, and yes. the single A work that they do there at FPD. So, your time as a Viking, I know that you got to sit there and it's like, okay, I enjoy the sport. What other storylines outside of the stuff that you've been writing on Brazil have kind of been there for you? What else have you been able to watch, and other highlights for you that were not writing attached for you since you've been down there?
I think, early on, one of the biggest things was just penalty kicks. Just like the importance of penalty kicks. A lot of them were missed and there were a lot given. And a lot of that's connected to the new VR technology. And so I just VR has been around for a little bit, but seeing it make such a big impact on matches so far in this tournament has just made me think more about it. Like, okay, what are my thoughts on it? Do we think it's good? Is it taken away from the just human aspect of refs having to make these calls? So that's been really interesting to watch and just kind of see that impact, because a lot of teams have lost 1-0 or they've lost because of a penalty kick or whatever. And so that's been really interesting. And then also it's really interesting to see just all the young girls coming on, especially a lot of the young girls like Washington, from Chambly playing for Jamaica, and you got Alyssa Thompson on USA's team, and just seeing these young girls enter the scene and now being at a place where it's they're 4 years younger than us. It's not oh, that girl's my age anymore. She's literally younger than me out there on this stage. And that's just been really cool just to see how young these girls are, and they're making these impacts on other national teams that are not just the U.S.
Luke Winstel, Molly Lee hanging out with us here on Soccer Down Here, Soccer's morning show, live from Brisbane, as they're going over a couple of what happened early this morning. Marta gone, Brazil out, Jamaica knockouts. And so now Molly's going to be writing some post-mortems about Brazil and anything else going forward now that one of the big heavyweights isn't there. Canada, not there. Christine Sinclair, two of the legends gone. Luke, what are you up to now with Australia? And, obviously the Ferns are gone. Australia advances. I mean, what's up next with you?
Australia, after the win against Canada, has taken a couple of days for recovery, so no press conferences yet, but they've got one tomorrow, and they're getting situated to head off to Sydney for their match now against Denmark in Stadium Australia coming up. So that'll be a big one, and for me, the goal is go into the press conference, hopefully get a few quotes that are good enough to pitch and run with, and then have one more Australia story before we head back. And also, we'll be, both of us, in the Tribune tomorrow working on the Germany-South Korea match. So Molly's got the deadline gamer. So as soon as that clock hits 0, she's filing. And then if there's a sidebar, then shortly after I'll be filing something maybe on Germany as well.
Molly, let me ask you this. What's the biggest thing that you've learned about deadline reporting on a world stage, and knowing that your work is heading to the Associated Press and folks are getting to look at your features and your deadlines and all this? What's the biggest thing that you think this experience has given you from a learning perspective?
I would say, like, the first thing I think of is just how important prep work is and how important it is to put that work in beforehand, because it makes your job a lot easier on the backhand. We were at a late lunch yesterday, and I was on deadline. Again, I had about an hour and 10 minutes to get quotes from Melbourne sent to me about Marta, figure out what was going on, rewrite the story, and send it off. And if I had not done the prep work like the sport media program teaches us to, there's no way I would have been able to send off an AP quality story to them. And so I think that's been the biggest thing. I was doing my prep work earlier today for tomorrow night's match. And so that just gives you a sense of confidence going into these matches and knowing that you're going to have to be on deadline, because you just pull from what you already have. And then all you have to worry about is just getting to watch the game and applying what you see. So then that brings the fun back into it.
Luke, you and I have been going through this whole experience together. Our friend Bam has questions. And Molly, since this is your first time, I don't know if Luke has briefed you on any of this. One of our listener/viewers is actually there in Australia. He is the guy who is in charge of the LAFC Australia-based podcast, and so he's a big LAFC fan. And he's been asking Luke and all of the other folks that Luke brings on questions. And so we have questions once again from Bam and Molly.
Here we go.
Time. Oh, yeah. First off, Bam wants to know what your thoughts are on Australia on the whole.
The second one. That one threw me off. On Australia as a whole.
Uh-huh.
Like the country or the team?
The country, your experience.
Okay. I've really enjoyed it. So I got to come early. And so I've been in Sydney, and then I went to Cairns, and now in Brisbane. Enjoyed Sydney, but did the tourist stuff. And I'm kind of good. I would go back to Cairns in a heartbeat. Got to go scuba diving and the rainforest and everything. That's the part I loved the most. And then I really loved Brisbane. Great town, very good balance. Also, amazing coffee here. I have really enjoyed all my iced lattes.
No doubt about it. Second question from Bam, and Luke, you might have to help out on this one. Is Taft a real person? Is Taft a real person?
Taft is a real person, but not Taft.
Because
we just pick him up.
Taft made this alleged appearance with Luke on one of Luke's first appearances. We had Taft come in, and Taft talked to Ireland, and he hasn't been seen since. Mm-hmm. So we don't know if Taft was a hologram. We don't know if Taft is just buried in his work and is now trying to figure out what other stories he has to do, since Ireland did not make it to the knockout stage. So that was why we wanted to know, why Bam wanted to know specifically if Taft was in fact a real person, since we only saw him once and haven't seen him since. So
you won't know unless you see him again.
This is what we're saying. Last question for both of you. Have you finally had a parmy?
Yes, I had one. I have actually had 2 or 3 since I've been here. I had one back in Sydney that was absolutely amazing.
I had one about 3 hours ago. That was my first one. I had to do it before I came back because I can't not give an answer to that question again.
No doubt. Yeah. See, and this is Bam always brings the heat, Molly. This is how this works. He is asking the Australia-based questions that Australians want to know when UGA students come and visit and cover the Women's World Cup. So this is the kind of hard-hitting stuff that you end up with here on the morning show. Last question for both of you. Shopping. Molly, how much shopping have you been able to do? Have you shipped ahead of yourself, or are you trying to just jam everything back into the suitcases and make sure that everything that you buy makes it back home in some manner, way, shape, or form and doesn't bankrupt you on the shipping?
Okay. First, I've done a little bit of shopping, but okay. So I don't like shopping unless it's for sports things. So I bought a few World Cup gear, like this sweatshirt.
There you go.
Most of it I'm going to be wearing home. But the real question is if I can fit all the stuff home that my mom wants me to buy her. She's like, can you fit coffee in your bag? Can you go buy this for me? And so that's the true question, is if I can fit all her stuff also in my suitcase.
Well, and that's the thing. That's what I'm saying. Ship ahead. Find like a FedEx place. And then there you go.
Yeah, I will say we have these we're taking back, and it's just going to go in my carry-on because there's no way this is fitting in my suitcase with all my clothes. We can't find a ball pump.
No,
mine's back in America.
No. You gotta keep that and then you gotta put that under glass when you get home. That's how that works. And so
you ask Luke this question.
What? Well, I mean, we've already talked to Luke about shipping and gifts and all of that stuff. And like I said, I'm recommending that you guys, if it's more than your suitcase, on Thursday or Friday, go to FedEx or go to DHL, ship it home ahead of you so that way you don't get the bag of shame. And then that way, everything that you want to take, everything gets home. Everything gets home. Everybody gets happy. Everybody's Christmases are fantastic. And then that way you're not left with tags of shame on the bag of shame when you're trying to check out of the airport. And that's how, like I said, just trying to think of things three-dimensionally here.
That's a good idea. Never would have thought to send it back to myself.
Yeah, so send it back to yourself before you go if things start to get out of control, apparently, like what your mom is trying to make sure that
like Luke.
Yes, exactly.
Luke told you to extend his stuff.
Yeah. Bam with an interesting point.
Oh,
Marta and Sinclair's both final games at Melbourne Rectangular. Does Megan Rapinoe join them? That's your last question. Luke, does Megan Rapinoe join them? Is it her last match at Melbourne Rectangular?
Wow.
Gotta go with your instinct.
Am I going to have to say, I'm thinking, I think I have to say no.
Okay.
My initial My initial inclination is yes, but I'm one of those that try not to get too down on the fact that Portugal game was less than impressive. I think that's easy to say. So I'm going to say USA ekes it out, but with Rapinoe, I'm just not sure how much she's really contributing right now in terms of what we're seeing on the pitch. So you look at some of the depth and then not having Rose Lavelle for the round of 16, USA is behind the 8 ball, but that's the type of thing where I think that team is one that, with their back against the wall, is one that I could still predict to move forward. But that's a pretty interesting storyline there with Melbourne.
Okay. Molly, so is Megan Rapinoe's last game at Melbourne Rectangular?
Oof. I'm similar to Luke. I think it is a 50-50. I was also make the same point about Rose Lavelle being out. She was the one game changer I saw in our last match. She's the one person that I really saw was able to attack and just make things happen. And with her being out, I think that's going to just be a lot of shifting in the midfield and one less really good sub to come in. So I want to say no because I have faith in our girls, but I also would not be surprised if it was.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So there you go. All right.
I think I can grind it out. That's the US. At
Luke Winstel and at Molly UGA 99. Did I guess that right?
Close. My sports one is Molly Lee Sports.
Molly Lee Sports. Okay.
That'll be best. And my personal is Malls UGA 99.
Okay. All right. So Malls UGA 99 or Molly Lee Sports. All right. And so Luke at Luke Winstel at Molly Lee Sports. Luke knows that he has golden ticket status for the Women's World Cup. So he can dive in any morning at 11:05 your time and 9:05 our time. and we can get everything squared away. So if you want to come in and parachute in and be there with Luke and drive him crazy for the first segment as long as you guys are still down there, please do. Welcome. Now that you've survived Soccer's morning show, guys, enjoy the rest of your night. We'll catch up with you soon. Thanks for hanging out and dropping the knowledge from Brazil and Marta no longer being an international competition. Thanks a lot, guys. Be safe. Be well. We'll catch up soon.
Thanks for having us. Y'all have a good day.
All right, be good. That's Molly Lee and Luke Winstel. So we do the hot tag, and that's literally what this is. I mean, literally, it is a hot tag to Bart. Now, where are you?
I'm in Sydney.
Well, I know that, but because you got to see the match that you got to see, but specifically, where are you?
I'm at a hotel in the Central Business District.
Okay.
We flew in. We changed our plans. We were going to stay in Auckland for another day. And then we decided, no, we want to go watch another match, and changed our plans to just arrive in Sydney a day earlier. Much cheaper than trying to figure out how to get to Melbourne on short notice.
Well, and like I said,
no, we're not switching those plans. We've decided we've set our budget at 300 to see if we could switch it, and it blew that out of the water just on the flights. So.
But by the way, for those of you that do not follow Bart, you should. And the pictures that Bart has. First off, how did you get those tickets, man?
So we bought the tickets today on the resale site. And so FIFA puts like the first 2-3 rows of most of their stadiums. They list them as restricted site or limited viewing or something like that, restricted viewing. Because you may, encounter blockages between you and the field. Yeah. That was not the case for us today. So those are actually a lot of times the cheaper option in any of those categories. And so, yeah, we snagged them and decided to sit down, and it was insane. Like being that close to some of the greatest players in the world. France rotated their lineup a bit. No Renard, no Le Sommer, but still saw Diani get a first half hat trick. Still saw Martha Cox's free kick on our half of the field. That was insane.
No, and I'm not. Well, actually, no. Actually, let me phrase it this way. That video does exist in very short form. I don't know how much longer it's going to be on the Twitters or on the X, and so it actually exists, or those pictures exist. So watch them now before they get pulled. There we go. Now that we've officially said, let's go backward a little bit, because you do have a Soccer for USPOD. That is your show here on the network.
Yeah.
Let's go back, and it was the point that Nick and I were discussing yesterday. We could go a bunch of different directions with it, but I'll just start here. The point that we continue to make is that the world margins are closing on the elites in women's soccer. And it seems to be everyone's focusing on the negative aspect of US's play in that last match. But at the same time, I would like to present, and we would also like to present, that the world's margins are closing. It ain't just all bad. It's the fact that the rest of the world is getting better. Hot tea. That will definitely work for the remainder of the day. The world is getting better. It's not just every single time that the best team in a matchup is worse.
Yeah, I think two things can be true at the same time. One, this is not a high-performing USA team. This is a team that under Vlatko Danovsky struggles to score goals. Doesn't give up a lot of goals. I think you've seen that throughout this tournament. Still very low XG. Even the one that went off the post last night was, it was a low XG shot, right? It would have taken a very good shot to finish that anyway. But at the same time, you have, because there's been more investment in women's soccer across the world, you look at Portugal as a prime example of putting money into their domestic league and seeing returns at the national team level. Hi, Abby. specifically Portugal is a great example, because I think Italy was a great example from last World Cup, where they had started to actually fully fund and make, their women's league professional. You saw that they make the knockout rounds in 2019. Portugal probably would have made the knockout rounds this time around if it were the older format, where you would have had 3 teams from a group going through possibly. And it's true, better players all around, everywhere across the world, means you're going to have better teams across the world, and that's a good thing.
You look at what happened in the not Bart venue this morning, and we had another one of those moments.
I was watching that at the fan zone before walking to the stadium. So,
and I mean, it's wild to think that we are in a tournament where Christine Sinclair is no longer a part of international competition, and Marta is now no longer a part of international competition. But once again, it goes to the overarching point that we've been having in this conversation early on, is that the world is getting better, and Canada had a lot of issues on and off the pitch. And I know that they're not going to sit there and say that everything hovering over them, the gray clouds involving Canada soccer business, were a part of it, but they didn't get it done on the field. Brazil, I mean, and you've got to tip your hat to Jamaica, who did not give up a goal in that group.
Yep.
And advanced to the knockouts by taking
a very tough group. I just watched France and Panama score total of 9 goals.
Mm-hmm.
That is an impressive accomplishment from Jamaica. Like, insane that they've been able to get to the knockout rounds. I don't think anyone expected that. Before the tournament, they're asking people for money through GoFundMe to just get here.
Yeah.
And now they're here, they're into the knockouts. You look at, even to pivot a little bit, South Africa. We talked about Italy making the round of 16 last time. Well, South Africa knocks them out. They've won now Women's African Cup of Nations, and they're into this round of 16 for this World Cup. Looking ahead to tomorrow, Colombia has a chance to win the group over, 2-time champion and I think 4-time finalist Germany. That is again, to your earlier question of just the margins are closing because you have more players playing soccer at high levels. And it's really unfortunate that Marta and Christine Sinclair aren't getting a goodbye on a bigger stage, that's not a round of 16 where they're fighting to, advance. It was rather disappointing, especially for Canada, to crash out the way they did. At least with Marta, it sucks that she got pulled off before the game ended, but she's given so much to this sport, to that team. I don't know what more she could have given. It's unfortunate her teammates weren't able to get the job done for her, but she's one of those that will be talked about for decades. When we talk about 100 years later, Barton's going to be in that conversation.
And this is from our friend Jonathan Tannenwald, the Philadelphia Inquirer, and we welcome in Jarrett Smith to the conversation as Bart drinks his hot tea.
Morning, Jarrett.
Morning.
If Colombia finishes off winning the group, Jonathan Tannenwald makes this point. If Colombia wins the group, in the round of 16, you'll have Colombia, Jamaica, France, Germany.
Do you know where that France-Germany game is going to be played?
Where?
Adelaide. Which is about a 16,000-seat stadium.
It's going to...
Whereas I believe
16,000 people will get to watch a knife fight.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, the Colombia-Jamaica match, I believe, is Brisbane, if I remember that correctly, which is 50,000.
Uh-huh. But once again, it gets into the whole idea of the knockouts and all of these matchups that you can't take teams for granted, and the way that they were thinking.
Yeah. I mean, look at the U.S.'s schedule. You had a 9 p.m. U.S. Eastern time kickoff scheduled, and now we're at 5 a.m. and in a smaller stadium in Melbourne. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, this is not going according to plan for FIFA.
No, and I mean, you're going to have 16,000 in that building if it goes the way that it goes.
Yeah.
And probably
Which it should. Colombia just needs to draw over Morocco. Like, get the job done, Colombia. But they've been my favorite team to watch all tournament, John. Linda Caicedo, she's my new favorite. Oh Lord, she's great. So yeah, we've jokingly considered staying just to follow Colombia.
Nothing wrong with
we
that.
We also offered to volunteer so we could get the whole full volunteer kit, and they said we couldn't do that.
Oh, see, they don't let folks from out of the country do it. Jarrett Smith for Bart Keeler, go.
Yeah, I heard you saying nice things about Marta when I was coming on, and I'm glad you did, because that's...
We'll say them now. I didn't say them too often when she was playing against the U.S.
No, but that moment with Bunny Shaw, it kind of does drive home. And what is this, Marta's like 6th World Cup? It feels like she is that kind of player who is going to do everything within her power to drive the sport forward beyond herself. And she is that player that everyone likes to think that they are on and off the field.
Yeah, I'm hopeful. I'm sure she will, but I'm hopeful she'll continue to stay to grow the game in Brazil. I hope that the Brazilian Federation is ready to give her a job tomorrow, because they need her. I mean, even for the men's game, like, they need her perspective on how to make the sport better in that country. But specifically for the women's game, they need her help.
Michael Valverde is in this morning, and he says the greats of the U.S. women's national team paved the way to this newly competitive arena. They did as much to build the game as anyone, starting with the 99ers. We should be celebrating this.
Don't tell Carly Lloyd that.
I saw someone say that Marta is who Carly Lloyd thinks she is.
Well, Megan Rapinoe is who Carly Lloyd thinks she is. But yes, too. Marta is definitely... No, well, let me rephrase that. Yes, Marta is who Carly Lloyd thinks she is. Carly is jealous of Megan Rapinoe's legacy. Let's put it that way. Because we're not going down this pathway. Yeah, I think that's absolutely true.
Personality too, though. Like, Carly's introverted. It's all get out with people.
Well, Carly's also only about Carly.
Oh yeah.
She didn't want to make the game better. She didn't want to make the game better for other people the way that Megan Rapinoe. I mean, Carly signed her name to that lawsuit for equal pay just because she wanted to get her money. Let's be real honest about this. She wasn't doing the fighting to try to actually get equal pay done after that. And when she talks about off the field things, that's what she's talking about, y'all. She's talking about that. She's talking about players getting their own endorsements. She's talking about all while she goes on her little book tour during club season. But you have to understand that Carly is mad that her role on the team was diminished over the years. She calls 2019 one of the worst times of her life while we're winning a 2nd World Cup in a row.
Yep. She
got Vlatko's gift of bringing her to the 2021 Olympics, and we didn't do very well. A lot of that's on Vlatko. It's not all on Carly for sure. But you've got to understand that Carly Lloyd is coming from this from a very narrow and very single-minded perspective on how soccer players get to be good. Because I guarantee you Marta worries about off-the-field things. You know? I mean, that passionate... I haven't seen the translation from the one she gave tonight, but the one she gave last World Cup. That's not someone who is in it for themselves.
Mm-mm.
You know, that's someone who wants to make this game better by inspiring young girls to be better.
Who else, when you look at role models, since we've gone down this road, who else comes across as a role model for the up-and-coming generation of talent that we're seeing? The younger players, whether it's the DeMello domestically, Sophia Smith domestically, Soleil Washington, who's with Jamaica, getting minutes and causing problems on the world stage for the opposition for Jamaica, the Caicedos. Who are the role models that you see from the older players that hopefully get to rub off with the proper message for those younger folks so they can continue and give you the messaging that you're looking for to continue to grow the game? Who are those role models?
Well, I'll just say that other than Megan Rapinoe and Alex Morgan, because I think Alex Morgan is in that echelon as well. Yeah. The player who has received the most applause of any player for the U.S. women's national team is Rosenfeld.
Yeah.
She has a lot of fans here, a lot. For good reason, obviously. She's a phenomenal player. She's very talented.
She's all right.
Yeah, she's decent. Yeah. But yeah, she's one that, and she's very different. I think that's the other thing, is she seems like the normal average girl to a lot of people.
Right.
Who is insanely talented with the ball at her feet and incredibly physically gifted. I know I know that she is a level-headed and down-to-earth girl from people that I've talked to who know her. So that's a different type of role model, right? She's not out there banging the drum to like a Pino or a Marta. She's just seems like she just is well-loved even by everyone on her team too. So that's one, for sure. And I think even then you look at, I know they're not in this tournament, which is unfortunate, but Leah Williamson, it would be one. I think you're looking, hopefully in the future, you're looking at players like on this U.S. team, you're looking at an Emily Fox or a Sophia Smith, who in their position inspire girls to be supremely talented on the ball, but also defensively. That's my hope.
Jarrett Smith for Bart Keeler, live from Australia.
Okay, let's take the 30,000-foot view then when we go forward in this tournament, because I know the perspective of the U.S. is down, which, yeah, after what happened in the last group stage. Who for you, if I gave you 5 juice boxes, who are you putting them on to win this thing outright?
Oh, okay. So I have seen some really good teams in person. I've seen Sweden. I've seen Japan. I've seen Colombia. I've seen France. The one that honestly looks the most like, oh, we're going to beat you, is Sweden. And that may shock some people, but I think Japan is up there. They're the side of the bracket that they're on is tough. So is Sweden. We were going on that half of the bracket. The U.S. is half of the bracket. There's 5 top 10 teams, which we thought that was going to be an easier side. It's not. Mainly because some of the teams on the other side got knocked out, like Canada and Brazil. But I think Sweden has impressed me the most because they dictated play and dominated play even after Italy came out and kind of took it to them for the first 10, 15 minutes. And Sweden's been on a very good run of form for the past 8 years. Obviously, we remember 2016 when they knocked the U.S. out of the Olympics. They ended up being the silver medalists there. They were the runners-up in 2021 again. So I really am liking Sweden. But Japan has also looked very good. But I think Sweden would get the best of them.
Right now, as things are laid out, obviously tomorrow it's the end of group stage. Right now in the bracket of the round of 16, Saturday, Switzerland, Spain, Japan, Norway. Sunday, Netherlands, South Africa, Sweden, and the U.S. That is at Melbourne Rectangular, 7 p.m. local time, 5 a.m. Sunday. And Abby has made a point in the Twitch pitch to say where the viewing party is. England, Nigeria in Brisbane, Australia, Denmark at Stadium Australia in Sydney. The winners of Group H against Jamaica at Hindmarsh in Adelaide. France with the runners-up at Melbourne Rectangular. So that is how we are right now for the round of 16. And one of the other things that we did not know, Temi Gatlana revealed she's lost 3 family members while at the World Cup after helping South Africa beat Italy 3-2. She won, struck in the 92nd minute, secured their first ever World Cup win for the round of 16. Lost 3 family members. I mean, came back from a brutal injury for me to be here. This is her quote. And play for the country, represent every single girl who wanted to be here to make history for South Africa. Everyone deserves it. South African players will double their prize money. FIFA telling national federations players should be paid $30,000 for participation, $60,000 if they reach the first knockout. So, I mean, you're looking at finances that can change lives in a lot of countries that are making the knockouts for the first.
I say the South African team has been a lot of fun to watch as well. I picked them to get out of the group, and watching them tonight, they constructed a couple of very beautiful goals. Forced another one. Wow, that is a tragic story, but also the beauty of what sports can give us is an escape from that. And then to see her be the one who gives us that goal for South Africa to advance is fantastic.
How good is Racing Louisville going to be over the next couple of years?
They're building they're building a decent team. Yeah. And it starts from the back because Katie Lund might be in the next group of goalkeeper conversations for the U.S., but DeMello, DeMello spearheads that, but there's just so much talent. I can't remember the Chinese girl's name, but yeah, they've got a lot of really good talent out there.
Borges got Lana Lund.
Yep.
I mean, are you kidding me?
Yeah. Their struggle is they lost a lot of players to the World Cup. They're going to have to hopefully make it up when they get back. Orlando got a big boost today, that's for sure. Getting Marta back.
Marta
Thorne's getting Sinclair back as well.
So we'll see who makes the mad dash. Sam says England, Nigeria is going to be good.
I'm going to be at the Netherlands South Africa match. And when we were watching the Italy South Africa match today, we really were just like, we wanted South Africa to win because they were more fun to watch. Yeah. And also, I think there'll be a little bit of fun little historical drama between the Netherlands and South Africa. That'll be interesting.
Bam is trying to convince you to make the trip. Bam says the train's leaving Sydney Central at either 7:40 a.m. or 8:42 p.m.
And the problem is getting back. I fly home the next day. So changing all those flights is not going to happen. We looked it up, Bam. We looked it up.
Bam.
The train would have been fine. It's the coming back. So unless there's a train that goes at midnight.
Bullet train. They need a bullet train to get you back for your flight.
Yeah.
Jarrett.
Sydney's fun though. I've enjoyed the couple times that I've been here.
So
I know Bam's down in Melbourne, but Sydney's nice.
Bart Keeler in Sydney. Go for it, Jarrett.
I'm not gonna lie. I like kicking other teams when they're down because I rip lunch from Freude.
Let's talk about Canada. Oh wait.
That's exactly where I'm going. This is why we get along. But so between now we've seen Canada and Brazil, two teams out who people didn't expect to be out. Which one do you think has the rosier outlook in the future versus the team that's got some decisions to make about life?
Well, Brazil, for one thing. I think they are just better suited to replace the talismanic figure that they are losing. I know it's unfortunate they didn't get the job done for Marta without her today, but you have more better talent ready to take off. Debinha, Ari Borges, like there's a lot of talent ready to go in Brazil. That I think they have a better trajectory. Canada has, I feel like they reached the zenith in that 2021 Olympics, which was a weird Olympics for everyone. Bev Friesman got a lot of things right, and she has got a lot of things wrong recently, especially in this tournament. So that's the decision you have to make. Do you have the money to hire a coach? To go hire a coach? Do you have money to do anything? I mean, they're really going to struggle. Brazil is bidding for the 2027 tournament too. So, which fingers crossed, if it's not the U.S., I kind of want Brazil. I think Brazil definitely is in a better situation than what happened with Canada. Also, Brazil lost to France. Like, it's not like they lost to a bad team. Yeah. They lost 2-1 to France because they didn't mark the best header of the ball in the game, Wendy Renard. Maybe second best, Alexander Popp. They're both very good at it. Let's just put it that way.
Yeah. So as we all right, let's map this out. It is Wednesday night late, and I know that you're going to go collapse and not talk for 5 or 6 hours before you have.
Yeah, can you tell my voice is a combination of the sinuses because I'm in a completely different climate and season. I was screaming a little bit last night, John.
No.
I know it didn't look like I was screaming much on television.
No.
But I was screaming.
Bart has made international appearances and cutaways for both matches.
I was surprised that one was on it. Maybe because people were watching. I was surprised I didn't make it today. We were 2 rows back, right behind the French bench, next to your boy, Herve Renard. So.
Next to your boy, Herve Renard. Who are you kidding?
If I look that good at 40, I'll take it.
All right, so map out your plans, and when do you think you can make your next visit discussing the World Cup from down there?
Well, probably tomorrow will be might be a good one. We're going to go watch the final matches at the Fan Center down here in Sydney, which is massive, and I found mostly all of the merch I needed at their 2-story FIFA store. There
you go.
Not
to mention your 15-hour layover in Fiji on the way home.
I have that one I found, and luckily I found it because I have a much shorter layover. Also, John, realized that I have a free checked bag to come back from Sydney to LA.
Excellent.
So we're not worrying about international shipping because we're putting it all in the checked bag, which also is going to be a FIFA World Cup backpack that is now a souvenir. So
there you go. All right, so.
Nice.
Bart and the Merry Band hoping to join us again 9:05 tomorrow morning. Bam has a question for you before you go.
Sure.
What's better, New Zealand or Australia?
Well, Australia's warmer, so it's winning that battle right now. New Zealand was cold. Wellington was so cold, John.
How cold was it?
I took a shower for like 20 minutes today in our hotel. So there was on top of it's basically San Francisco, but actually windy. The city is also laid out a lot like San Francisco. Wellington's a beautiful city. Auckland's beautiful. I think the actual country is prettier, but so far I'm enjoying being in shorts and a long sleeve in Sydney. But shout out to both Sydney and Wellington for having free botanic gardens to walk through.
There you go.
The people in New Zealand are great. They were really nice, very hospitable, very excited to have everyone there. I will give a shout out to both countries. Really,
that's the diplomat. There you go.
I know. Well, I'm going to compare them to a country we all love to hate, and it's France. When I arrived in France for 2019, it was like the World Cup wasn't even happening. They're like, oh, yeah, this thing is happening over there. You arrive in Sydney, you arrive in Wellington, you arrive in Auckland, and the World Cup stuff is just everywhere in the airport. You've got signage, you've got posters, you've got merch in the gift shops. It's everywhere on the streets. It's on the buses. It's on the trains. So it's great. Yes, Abby, I have pins, and if you want any specific ones, I'll message you because I'll message you tomorrow because there are some specific ones that I think I can get still, but I'll get you one. I don't know if they have any of the USA pins. The USA merch is like non-existent. We bought it all. Wow. I haven't been able to find a USA scarf. The best I've been able to find is USA magnets and a one USA pin, but it's hard to find. I mean, they have plenty of T-shirts and hats, but no one wants these. They're terribly designed.
There you go. No worries about that.
Well,
save your voice and make sure that you're good for us again at 9:05 tomorrow morning.
I was also screaming a lot for Panama tonight, John. Vamos Panama! They were fantastic. That was such a fun match.
And we will discuss it all again tomorrow morning, 9:05, 11:05 local time for Bart and Sydney at Bartimus Prime 19 at Soccer for US POD. Go drink some tea. Go take a hot shower. We'll see you tomorrow morning, evening.
Cheers, y'all.
What he said. So there goes Bart. And since it's the top of the next hour, another hot tag. Dylan Butler now joining us.
I'll go. We'll tag coffee mugs, Bart and I.
And so Dylan is being a goldfish here on Deadline Day. It's the Deadline Day special almost, the way that it's turning out. And I think we're getting close. Okay. So locally, we've been getting the teases on social media that Atlanta United is adding folks. They added Tiare yesterday, Senegalese up top. Now they have added another forward from Dijon, Xande Silva from Portugal. So, and there's also talk from Tommy Scoops about someone that Jarrett and I have been talking about for a while, adding Saba Lobjanidze from Hatayspor. And that looks like, according to Tom Bogert, it looks like Lobjanidze is going to be added as a DP, though the deal gives Atlanta flexibility, and this is Bogert's words, to be bought down in the future to free up a DP spot. According to Bogert, this had been Atlanta's plan all summer long following the departure of Luis Araujo to Flamengo. 15 goals, 23 assists, 120 matches between Hatayspor, Ankaragücü, and Fatih Karagümrük in the Turkish Premier League. So Xande Silva on loan from Dijon, Saba Lobjanidze from Hatayspor, and Jamal Tiare yesterday from League Two. So, Dylan, how has your deadline day gone so far?
Early going, quiet, but certainly anticipate as the morning and afternoon gets going. It's gonna heat up. I think there's gonna be a lot of movement in this secondary transfer window.
Jarrett Smith for Dylan Butler. What's on your mind?
So I guess for non-Atlanta reasons, I do want to ask. I want to get your thoughts on what Columbus is doing. I mean, it's a team that brought in Wilfred Nancy, hit the ground running, and it was kind of 9s and 1s at different points of the season. But now you see a club legend leave, and you bring in Rossi. And how do you think this changes, or doesn't really change a lot for Columbus and how they're going to approach things?
Yeah, I don't think it changes a whole lot. Obviously, it's not a like for like, right? I mean, Zella Ryan was, your linchpin, right? Your playmaker who scored these ridiculous free kick goals as well. You're bringing in Rossi, who is a former Golden Boot Award winner, obviously with LAFC. Different player profiles, but dynamic, I think, is certainly a similarity between the two of them. But I don't think it really changes Columbus, because we heard from Wilfred Nancy. I was on the post-match Zoom press conference, or hybrid press conference, after that incredible win over Club America, which was hours after Zella Ryan gets transferred, right? Like, so everyone just kind of assumed going into it, right? Like, oh boy, Crew are gonna have problems, and they concede early, and then they just are like, no, listen, the team is bigger than any player. Even though when I asked Nancy about the statement kind of that it made, he said, we're not making statements, but he said it's about the system, it's about the way they play. I think Rossi will fit into that obviously well. And I think what we've seen from the Crew, I think it's just sort of that natural learning under a new coach, different system. I think they're going to be a really, really good team in this. It's weird because it's not the second half of the season, right? Because there's a break, but it's a later season break. So, down the stretch, I guess, final 12 games or so of the regular season, I think they're going to be really good.
Bam with a question early on here in the segment. Wanted to know your thoughts on the Diego Fagundes to LAG for Memo and up to 900,000 in GAM.
Yeah, I mean, this is the game that LAG have to play, right? Like, with the sanctions, they can't make any moves out of the league, with the exception of when the window closes to get a free agent, right? So we expected these type of moves within the league, and they get a player in Fagundes who has proven to be a threat. He'll have a larger role on a team that's been decimated with injuries. So certainly plenty of playing time, certainly plenty of opportunities for him to showcase himself for for a Galaxy team that, is in desperate need of additions. That's for sure.
Jarrett Smith for Dylan Butler.
And going from the team he's leaving in Austin, what's your read on this Austin team?
They are not a tournament team. I think we've proven that, right? Holy smokes.
They just need to stay in the league, man.
Yeah, just play league matches. Don't play in the Champions League, Open Cup, any other cups. Stay away from cups in Austin. Clearly,
you're banned.
Yeah,
it's,
no cups.
It's shield or nothing.
Mugs.
That's where it's at, man. What's your read on this? Are your thoughts on this club with the Fagundes moving out to a team that's disappointed this year, but that kind of at times started to show a little bit of life and in trying to maybe find that next step in their evolution as they're in their third year now.
Yeah, and I think they're benefiting from the fact the West is down this year, right? So they can have their troubles and issues and work through them and have a bit of a roller coaster season and still find themselves in a good position to make the playoffs and do some damage there. So definitely a work in progress. It's funny that two of the newer teams, Austin and Nashville, even though they've been built in different ways and had different levels of success. Nashville, I think, has been more consistent. Well, they definitely have been more consistent, right, than Austin. They were both desperately looking for a number 9, right? Nashville says they have their guy, and they both have those dynamic guys in the midfield, right, with Driussi and Hani. But the difference, I think, maybe is Nashville. They believe they have that number 9, and I think Austin, it's still sort of, I don't know. It's a work in progress up front for them. So I think that's part of the issue, and I think also, Nashville generally, I think has done a better job with the kind of the collective build of their roster, right? Like they're more sound. You could build out, like you go from the back with Zimmerman and you go through the midfield and up front, like they're a more well-balanced team, it would appear, certainly than Austin, right?
Well, and then Gary decides that he wants to bring in somebody up top as protection, I guess, bring in some muscle to kind of distract everybody from Hani Mukhtar, dropping, I think it was $5.5 million on a transfer fee for a player from Nottingham Forest who hasn't played a whole lot of matches and hasn't played 2,000 minutes since League Two, like 7 years ago. It's an interesting choice. And you know that Gary's got something in mind, bringing in somebody from Forest. That's just what
I was going to ask you for your comment as Gary Smith on the new signing.
He's there to protect Hani. You know that, Dylan. That's just how it works.
It's spot on, Gary Smith. I love it.
I mean, it's an interesting idea, but for someone who hasn't had a whole lot of minutes, I mean, obviously in a sprint toward the end of the season, it may not necessarily matter that much this year. But it was an interesting deposit in the coffers of Nottingham Forest.
For sure, and you add him to the list of number 9s gone by the wayside, right? Like by the side of the road there, looking like some of those who partied a little bit too hard on Lower Broadway. The former forwards are like the guys on Sunday morning who are just sort of like walking around Lower Broadway, like, what just happened? So maybe this is the one that they hit with.
Well, keeping him off Broadway, Dylan. You know how it works. making sure it's a bit of a low, but making sure that it's a gradual introduction to what goes on there on weekends. He's not allowed to cross.
There's no upper Broadway. There's just Broadway. And
making sure it's a very gradual introduction to Broadway. It's not allowed to cross the river for a while, Dylan.
Yeah, exactly.
Get him his cowboy hat and make sure that everything's going on.
There's no Lower Broadway, John. There's just
I don't care. You're blowing.
No. It's just degeneracy.
Yeah. See that, yes, and you have to keep your new players away from that until further notice. It's like you'll introduce them to the Speedway. That's where you park. You come to Geodis, and this is what you just like: apartment, Geodis, practice facility, and that's it. That is those three things. That is all you do. When the season's over, you go to Broadway and cross the river. Not a moment before. When you look at all of the other moves that we've seen so far, who else stands out, and who stands out for not making a move so far?
I feel like you could always insert Red Bulls here for not making a move. So that seems to be the one for their inactivity.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, look, for even beyond the Messi factor, I think Miami sort of their ability to make these moves and I think Chris Henderson, it's funny. I think when he took over and he had to make, when we said it, right, like he came in after sanctions, needing to make I think it was a 19 changes or something crazy, I think, from year over year. That's not easy within the structure of MLS with the roster constraints. So just to be able to do that was amazing. And now, you're bringing in obviously world-class players and then additions after that, right? So I think that's been the most intriguing to me, certainly, right? Like what they've been able to do. It's NYCFC on the other side of Red Bull, I think is interesting, right? Like some reports indicating perhaps the return of a Maxi Morales, which honestly, I thought, I think Alex Callens was a big miss, but when you look at their attack and the way they're built, that's the guy that's been missing, right? Like you took him out of it and they haven't had that replacement, right? Like they thought they might have had the other guy there. It's not worked. And listen, he's a year older than he was, but he was really good last year and in the cup run. So, who knows, right? Like maybe that's a move they can get across the line, and that would be really interesting for them. In addition to other signings up front as well.
Yeah, there's a certain degree of what if Red Bulls just tried more things? That comes with everything you're associated with it.
And what's funny too? Sorry to cut you off, Jared. What's funny too is like we're seeing. It's almost like we need two different sort of analyses of this secondary transfer window. It's like the new signings and the returning guys.
Yeah.
We're seeing a bunch of guys returning into the league, right? Which I don't know. I guess that speaks well to the league, right? Like they've tried this overseas move or wherever they went and figured out that maybe the grass was greener back in MLS.
Yeah, I know. I remember the quote when Giacomakis came to Atlanta. It was somewhat part of it was, "Hey, I'm in my late 20s. This is a good contract, and I can go settle down with my family." And hey, man, America's a good place to have that kind of money. As far as another team that has made moves this window that I wanted to talk to you about was Minnesota. Bringing Tim Mapuki, who's a little bit older of a striker, but I know Adrian Heath has been looking for that striker since he's been in Minnesota and hasn't really found it since Christian Ramirez was there back at the beginning. Yeah. But it kind of seems like with Reynoso coming back into the flow, is Minnesota a team that can make a bit of noise in kind of the middle of the Western table?
Yeah, I'm intrigued by. I think that's definitely a gamble, right? Like we've had a very small sample size of him to this point. I haven't been overly impressed, to be honest. Now, summers in Minnesota are a lot more forgiving than perhaps in Nashville and other places, in Orlando and Miami.
The state bird is the mosquito. That's the joke in Minnesota. No lie.
But yeah, I don't know if that's I don't know how big of an impact he's going to have. So the jury's out there, and Reynoso back. I mean, he's been able to do it even by himself. So, can that partnership hit like other partnerships in the league have? I think a lot is riding on it for Minnesota, right? A team that's been sort of just there, but not above that fold in the West. So, and another team too that I guess is seemingly, unless there's some blockbuster move in the West, like that's been quiet, is Seattle, right? And I don't know how many mulligans we have to give them until we just say maybe this construction that they have right now, it's past its prime, right? Like a la what we were saying, I guess last year or the year before about some of the Sporting Kansas City guys, right? Where it's not the Champions League hangover. It's not like, there's injuries, but they were humbled certainly by Monterrey, right, in Leagues Cup, and they've not really wowed in MLS either. So I think that's an interesting one too. And maybe because of all those moves they've made in the past, they're hamstrung by it, where they really maybe can't make a big move. And that's I think telling for them right now.
Well, and we have Nico Moreno from Pulso Sports and the Soccer Bar on with us every Thursday at 10:30. Last week, Nico had a quote that kind of stuck with me. He says, "Immortality has a cost, and right now Seattle is paying that cost for immortality with all of the runs, CONCACAF Champions League, Club World Cup. They're paying that cost right now for everything that they've accomplished up to this point with that group of folks."
I think like an NYCFC, as an example, has done a good job of turning over those type of players, right? Like, like they didn't, and maybe there were other off-field reasons that we've found that after, but they don't re-sign a David Villa, who was the club legend, and other players. You're like, oh man, how do they lose him? And but they realize sort of there's a window, and like if it closes, it closes, right? So like get out before that window closes, and you can refresh. Seattle has not done that. They've said, this is our guy. We're going to run with these guys until we can't anymore. And that's a good point. I think they're paying the price for that. I'd love you to I don't think I'll have an opportunity to jump on Thursday, but I'd love for you to ask him about Newcastle's new guy. What does he think about Tonali, our new midfielder? Because I know he's a big Serie A. Milan guy.
Yeah, Nick has gone berserk when it comes to talking about Tonali.
In a good way, I would hope.
Yeah, and what the bigger thought was from Nick is that there's a lot of discussion from non-English based, and by that I mean GBR, non-English based journalists, specifically more Italian, that Tonali is having issues adjusting to life in the Premier League. And when we had the summer series here, we made the point to ask Eddie Howe and Kieran Trippier in that press conference about Tonali and his adjustments. And both Howe and Trippier were like, nah, he's a quiet guy. And he's trying to learn things right now, but he has not had an issue adjusting. He hasn't had any kind of problem whatsoever. So they were definitely dispelling that idea from mainly Italian journalists that Tonali was hating life and didn't enjoy what was going on at Newcastle. So they completely dispelled what was going on.
And guys, we've had a bit of a break, right, these last couple of weeks, but haven't been able to talk about that. I was able to be a fan and go to matches as a fan. Exactly.
Who is this Dylan Butler that I'm talking to?
As a fan in Philly and at Red Bull to watch Newcastle. So that was fun. It was funny, right? Because and it's obviously way different for you guys. Like you're in Atlanta, where Atlanta United is the team, right? Like, but like because it's an English team and you don't get to see them here, you can only watch them on television. You have no idea of the fandom in the States, right? Like, I went to Philly and I park and I'm like, wow, there's a lot of black and white shirts. Like, I was stunned at how many. It really took me aback. And then I watched the match in Atlanta, and obviously a Chelsea heavy crowd, right? Like, they're one of the giants of the Premier League, but Miggy scores that goal, and a lot of, obviously a lot of Miggy fans there, but a big ovation there. And then I go to Red Bull, and same thing, like 26,000 in the house. It was awesome. I ran into one of the fans in he did have a few beverages, you'd say, during the match, but was afterwards. He was like, I want to cry. I haven't seen them live in 16 years. This is amazing. So, like, for so many, like, we take for granted a lot of these tours, and I've been against, sort of the money grab of it, of the Barcelonas and the Manchester Uniteds and the likes every year coming over. But look at that with Newcastle, right? Like, in the Champions League for the first time in 20 years, making part of this summer series, coming over to the States, and they've not done that. Right. So it allowed me, and obviously unbeknownst to me, thousands of other fellow Geordie faithful to see them live, which was really cool. The one thing I would say that wasn't cool was leaving Red Bull Arena. Wow. So
I've been there. I've done that.
but let me say this. So we joke a lot about the crowds at Red Bull Arena. Honestly, I think if you're a regular going to Red Bull Arena, I think you like that. I think you like that you have like 12,000 people there, because 26,000, like, I parked, it took me 45 minutes to leave the parking lot and drive the, whatever it was, 4 blocks of Harrison, just to get to 280. Like, brutal. That area is not set up for the larger crowd at Red Bull Arena.
No, it is not. And when it took me an hour and 15 minutes to get an Uber after being turned down 6 times after a match was over, that was an adventure as well. Chris Whalley, the head coach of Lionsbridge FC, joining us coming up in just a little bit to talk about USL League Two final. He just wrapped up practice. He's getting ready for Ballard FC. They have to pack up from Newport News and go all the way to Starfire this weekend. So we're going to catch up with him after practice coming up in just a little bit. Wrapping up with Dylan Butler. Jarrett, go.
Okay, let's shift it back to the league for a minute for a team to look forward to. Because I can't remember if we've talked about this, but I'm kind of giddy about just how chaotic and fun they can be. But who's next up to get slapped around by RSL?
Well, they're the team that I'm most excited about in the second half, or the whatever the when league play resumes. They did their big transfer moves early in the window, and I love it. I love what they've been doing, with Luna and Krylak being healthy again, and obviously, the big one in Chicho Arango. Super excited about them. I think they maybe didn't get a favorable draw in the Leagues Cup, but that's a fun one as well. Like, we're not going to really have a lot of time to dive too deep into Leagues Cup, but some really fun round of 32 matchups, and that one of the biggest ones for me, Club Leon and Real Salt Lake. That should be a barn burner, I think, in this round of 32. And I don't know if you guys saw it, but I would recommend checking it out. Matt Doyle tiered the contenders for the Leagues Cup championship, and maybe didn't make a lot of MLS fans happy, but truth bombs, right? The 3 of the top teams were all Liga MX's sides, so it still runs through them, still runs through a Monterrey, and who else did he have up there? Monterrey, was it Tigres perhaps, and Pachuca, I think.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's going to be, or no, Club America, of course.
Yeah.
Despite the drubbing by Columbus, still very much Club America. Which, by the way, I thought the kit that they wore against Columbus, fire, loved it.
Okay.
Oh, tremendous.
And you're going to send us all to the poorhouse. Quickly before you go, Bam wants to know: do you watch or listen to the Australian Newcastle podcast called Tune Under Podcast?
Bam, I don't, but I will now.
There you go. All right. So what's going on with you and OSDB Sports, MLSsoccer.com? What are you doing?
Yeah, I'm on the not tonight, so it's not the messy Florida derby shift, but I do have MLS shift tomorrow night. So we've got the Hudson River Derby as for that, and some other fun matches as well. So perhaps another late night. It was 2 a.m. the other night. Let's see how late Thursday will be. And then for OSDB, for this coming Monday, didn't do it mid-season, but I figured the break is the best, might as well do it now, is just kind of grading teams, right, through the season to this point, from A's, which, pretty obvious, right, like with an FC Cincinnati and a St. Louis, down to F's, which also pretty clear which teams in coldish destinations will get those grades. So that'll be on osdbsports.com as well. So.
Looking forward to it, my friend. Thanks for hanging out with us. We'll catch up with you next week.
All right, boys.
Dylan Butler. Now, once again, this has been the show of the hot tag. We now bring in the head coach of Lionsbridge, hopefully doing things safely. Coach, how was practice?
Yeah, it was good. I'm actually driving back to the beach right now with my family, so I'm going to pull over and talk to you guys here. Be a safe driver.
Yeah, safe driving. We definitely are promoting that. And Lionsbridge is getting ready for a matchup against Ballard. For those that haven't had the chance to keep an eye on your season, Chris, what's it been like this season for Lionsbridge getting to the last game of the year in League Two?
We've had a great season. We won the Chesapeake Division again this year for the second season in a row. We had a couple of challenges mid-season. We lost 2 games in a row, and then we tied a game at home, which we probably thought we should have won. So we went through a bit of adversity, but I think sometimes when you go through adversity like in life and you come out the other side, we were definitely stronger for it. And then I think the playoffs have thrown everything at us. We won a game comfortably, a 1-0 game. We were comfortably 3-0 up in one of the games after 25 minutes. Then we had a player sent off, they had a player sent off, and the game went crazy. We were 2-0 down in one of the games after 20 minutes, and then won 4-2. And then the last game we were down and came back again, and obviously then won on penalties, which was crazy and super exciting. So we feel like we've been through the whole repertoire of the way the games can go, if that makes sense.
It does. Jarrett, breaking down Lionsbridge, go for it.
And Coach, it was a good season last year as well. Winning the division, making through the playoffs. How much, even though I know it doesn't end in a title last year, but how much do those experiences and those scars get this club ready to make this run this year?
It's a great question. Like last year, we didn't lose a game in the regular season. And our first loss was, a heartbreaking loss at home to Vermont, who were a good team last year. So for us, we were able to bring some guys back, which is great. There was a continuity through the roster, and those guys had felt that pain. And I think we were readied, and we were, that's 3 years in a row now we've been in the playoffs, and some of these guys have had those experiences. We were also able to bring a few more experienced players in as well, who've maybe been in playoffs and been in the league before. So that definitely helped us too. But yeah, it's been a great run and a lot of fun. But the past is definitely helping our future.
For those who have not had the chance to see you play this year, and they're going to be watching you for the first time in this match against Ballard, chasing a championship, who are some of the folks that the guys and girls who are going to be watching this match can gravitate toward from a Lionsbridge perspective? Who do they need to keep an eye on?
Our goalkeeper's very good. Sala's very, very good. He saved 2 penalties. He plays at FIU. Isaiah Chisholm's a really interesting one. He's going to be a freshman at Kentucky this year. He's been with the national team. He's part of the DC United program. He's a 18-year-old who's 6'4", I believe, and 200 pounds plus of muscle. He's just an amazing young man. And then, our captain, Sam Hall's a very good player, athletic midfielder. We've got a bunch of good players. One of our centre-backs, David Materazzi, some of you soccer historians may know that name. His dad was Marco, who won the World Cup final, scored a header, won the World Cup final for Italy. So we've got some good players and a lot of really good ones. So it's difficult to just pick a few out.
And Coach, one of the things that sticks out to me when looking about this team getting ready is we talk a lot of times about the playoffs format. The most important number you can put on that board is the big 0 under your opponent's name. Only 10 goals surrendered in the regular season and just continuing to fight in the playoffs. I mean, how has it been put together, this defense, to just suffocate teams for so often?
Yeah, I don't know who said it. It's probably a basketball coach, but they say defense wins championships. And I was an attacking player when I played, but I've always, as a coach, I've bought into that. And I think we've got a collective group identity that we do want to defend, and everybody wants to work for each other. So we defend really hard. We try and protect our goalkeeper, and we try and get bodies behind the ball and work extremely hard. But then we've got some special guys on offense as well. So if we're able to spring those guys, we can be. I think we're exciting to watch and dynamic. I wouldn't say we're a Barcelona of the 2000s, a Toca team. We're a bit more pragmatic than that, and we're going to be, athletic, physical. We've got quite a few British guys on the team, and so it'll be a little bit more of a British style, perhaps, than the Spanish back in the day when Barca were very, very good.
Chris Whalley, head coach of Lionsbridge FC, hanging out with us, breaking down the USL League Two final, where it is Lionsbridge having to travel halfway across the planet to take on Ballard at Starfire this weekend for the USL League Two title.
So
there we go.
I think I'm back. I'm not moving.
You are. You're back. Good.
I don't know what happened.
It's all good. We're back. It's great. That's all that matters. Community. You were talking about community there and seeing how things have grown since you walked in the door there at Lionsbridge.
Yeah, it's just been amazing, really. I think the club's done a fantastic job. This town has really embraced us. But I think the players that have come over the last 6 years have done an unreal job of being involved in this community, and we've done a lot of great things. So that's really, really neat. But yeah, to have the fan base we have week in, week out, coming out and supporting us, I think we averaged 2,800 last year. I feel like we're getting 2,000-3,000 every week. So it's just it's a great environment for these young men to play in front of.
When you've been studying Ballard, what has study hall been like getting ready for this game?
I'm not going to lie to you guys. My assistant coaches, they do a lot of the game film. That's their job. I'd booked a week at the beach with my family this week, so I've had to negotiate with my wife to have a couple of days down there and then jump on a plane tomorrow. But no, Fernando Zuniga, Nathan Jones, Jamie Gunderson, Josh Spencer and Tennant McVeigh, that's my assistant coaching staff. Really experienced, college coaches. Jamie's won a national title. We've got coaches from ODU, Shawan University and West Virginia Wesleyan. So I think we've got 5 college head coaches on our staff. It's a huge staff, and we kind of, as a group, we've collectively watched the film and I listen to what they tell me, and I guess I've just had to sift through that knowledge,
I was going to say, how did this deal work? I mean, because you've got time scheduled at the beach with the boss and the family, and you're chasing after a championship. What were these conversations like?
Well, in fairness, my wife played soccer when she was younger, so she loves it. My 2 little boys, I've got a 7-year-old, a 3-year-old. They're on the field after the games, loving life. So, they really enjoyed being at the games this weekend, and I think they'll probably give Daddy a free pass on this one. I'm a very lucky man to have my family, but very lucky to be coaching at this stage. I'm sure there's a lot of people would like to give up a few days at the Outer Banks, which is beautiful, man. I must say that. Plug to the Outer Banks.
No doubt about that. It's if we could get OBX to sponsor the segment, we'd be even happier.
Oh yeah, 100%.
Now, when you look at now, you've been a coach. Shawan Lees McRae, and for those that follow along in the lower divisions in the NCAA. What's it been like for you to see the game itself grow to where the quality can be found in assembling a roster from a bunch of different places? Could be domestic, could be international, could be D1, could be D2. What's it like to see the game continue to grow and evolve to where talent is where talent is, for lack of a better phrase?
Yeah, that's a great statement, really, mate. I think, I've coached at Division 1 and Division 2 level. And, Christopher Newport, one of the best Division 3 programs in the country. There's really good soccer players all over this country. We've got quite a few British guys in our team, but we've also got a lot of very good Americans. I've been in this country for over half of my adult life. The game has grown so much. Not just from, I remember when coming over, you might remember days of Fox Soccer.
Yeah.
On a Saturday morning, might be like 1 or 2 games on. Now, like the Peacock and all that stuff, and the coverage is so good. It's great, and all with the internet and all the coverage that you get. I think it's brilliant. And there's so many good players in this country. It's just great. The game's growing and growing and growing. And for me to go home, if I have to go back to the UK, people, soccer's getting a lot more respect in this country all around the world, if that makes sense now. People are really starting to recognise that. And, the greatest player in the world has just come to play in this country. I think is a huge testament as well, isn't it,
Is there any truth to the rumor that you and Mike Vest and everybody there tried to get him to help you out in the League Two schedule? Is there any truth to the rumor?
Messi?
Yeah.
I don't know if it might be it's probably a good rumor. So.
All right, last question for you before you hit the road and head to the Outer Banks with your family. And thanks for doing this before you hop on a plane and head to Seattle for the championship against Ballard this weekend. Once again, for someone who hasn't seen Lionsbridge play, there's always at the beginning of a broadcast keys to the game, keys to the match. For us to be successful, we have to do point 1, point 2, point 3. For you to be successful against Ballard, what do you think needs to happen out there on the pitch?
Hopefully they're not watching, so I'm not giving up our entire game plan.
Right.
But we need to be physical and compete defensively. I imagine at Starfire they're going to have a big crowd, so we need to go in there and quieten that crowd a little bit by stifling out. I imagine they'll try and make a hot start and get the crowd behind them, so we need to be thoughtful and intelligent about how we try and slow them down and defend really, really well. And then ultimately, I think there's no doubt about this, we are excellent on set pieces. And any team that scouts us will watch that and seen that. We've scored a ton of goals on set pieces, so we need to execute and do what we're good at. We defend really well, we're athletic and fast on the counter-attack, and we're good on set pieces. I think the Ballard coaching staff will know that already by watching film on us. So I don't think I've given up too much. But if we do those things well, we've got a chance. And look, at this stage of the season, a bit of luck can help us as well. So maybe Lady Luck will be on our side and we'll be bringing a trophy back to the East Coast.
And at the same time, hopefully there won't be weather delays and games that go forever to where you're wondering if you're going to be violating local noise ordinance curfews and things like that and playing until the end of the evening and then the next morning, eh?
Yeah, really excited to get out there and play in 70-degree weather. We're looking, it's going to be, we've been delayed because of heat, we've been delayed because of lightning, and I don't think I've ever coached a game where you finish at 1:45 in the morning. It was literally, I was saying good morning to people as we were leaving the stadium. It's just pretty interesting, as you can imagine.
No doubt. Chris, thanks for hanging out with us and pulling over to the side of the road as you're heading to the Outer Banks to hang out with family as you're getting ready. At the same time, one of the best multitaskings that we've heard of in recent memory, getting ready for a title game and heading to the family with the Outer Banks. Good luck. Safe travels to you and the team heading out to Ballard. We'll catch up with you soon, my friend.
Thanks so much, and thanks for all you guys are doing for soccer in this country. We definitely appreciate it.
All right. He's going to hit the road because we believe in safe driving. Chris Whalley, thanks for that. Was very cool. Chris pulled off to the side of the road and made sure that it was safe interviewing Chris Whalley, the head coach at Lionsbridge, as they get ready for Ballard USL League Two championship. This has been a bouncing show this morning. I honestly was wondering if we were going to go long, and we were thinking that. I was legitimately thinking that, but man, that's been a busy show. So we've had Luke Winstel and Molly Lee from Brisbane discussing World Cup. Bart Keeler from Sydney discussing World Cup. Jarrett came in to talk with Bart and with Dylan Butler. Dylan Butler discussing Major League Soccer, and then Chris Whalley hanging out with us from Lionsbridge for the USL League Two championship. So it's been it's been a fun show this morning. Thanks to everybody who's been following along with all of the whiplash and heading the curves and taking the apex through all of it. While we were discussing everything going on, MLS deadline day. Remember, window closes at midnight Central Time. So everything going on until 1 o'clock in the morning. Obviously, keeping an eye on Rossi. New England Revolution. Georgi Petrovic is not happy right now. Forrest and Nantes have had bids rejected. You wonder if anybody's going to be keeping an eye on Georgi Petrovic. So you've got that. Xande Silva, officially official when it comes to joining Atlanta United. And that is, part of how crazy this day can get and how crazy this day can be. Still awaiting the official word on Saba Lobjanidze, and we will obviously keep an eye on that as both. And Nico had reported it last week that this stuff was going to be going down. He reports it yesterday on his social media about Lobjanidze and about Xande Silva. And so all of that happened this morning as well. So Xande Silva is officially official in Atlanta United's eyes. Still waiting on the official purchase of Lobjanidze from Hatayspor. So Nico reports it with ideas last week on the show. We'll talk to Nico tomorrow, kind of get a recap of everything having to do with deadline day. Yesterday, he mentions Silva and Lobjanidze. And Silva's officially official. And what they're looking at for Lobjanidze is signing as a DP that can be bought down later. And so that obviously is the plan. 15 goals, 23 assists, 120 matches for Lobjanidze. And last 3.5 years, Hatayspor, Ankara-Gucci, Fatih Karagümrük. And so Xande Silva also on loan from Dijon through the remainder of the year. So that's what you're staring at for Atlanta United. And looking forward to seeing how it all integrates and how it all comes together. Obviously, when Lobjanidze becomes final, we'll keep an eye on that too. Kind of touring everything that's going around and let you know all of the yays and the nays and who's doing what and who's going where. We'll keep an eye on all of that as we're going forward. Once again, remember, you've got Women's World Cup once again bright and early in the morning. You've got all the things that you can watch. And we'll get into that too. What is on the tube? What is on the telly? Soccer on TV today. beIN Sports and beIN Español has the Copa Sudamericana 6 and 8 doubleheader on beIN and beIN Español. Estudiantes Goyas and in the Libertadores, Nacional and Boca Juniors is at 8 o'clock. 7:30 this morning. CBS Sports Network at the Liverpool Bayern friendly. Men's club friendlies on ESPN2 back-to-back. Atletico Madrid, Real Sociedad, and Sevilla and Real Betis. 8:30 on the U, Chelsea and Borussia Dortmund. And we mentioned what's going on simulcasting with World Cup. ESPN Deportes at 2:45 has Marseille and Bayer Leverkusen, Atletico Madrid and Real Sociedad at 9 o'clock. Telemundo and Universo were your simulcasters for the World Cup this morning. Season Pass, we'll get into juice boxes coming up in just a little bit. Leagues Cup, Inter Miami, Orlando City's at 8. Mazatlan FC Dallas at 9. That's on the free side of Apple TV. Pachuca Houston Dynamo is at 9. LAFC and Juarez is at 10:30. We mentioned the friendlies, the 4 friendlies that are on the plus. Marseille, Bayer Leverkusen, 2:45. Juve, Real Madrid, 7:30. Chelsea, Borussia Dortmund, 8:30. Atletico Madrid, Real Sociedad is on at 9. USL Championship, Loudoun and Memphis is on tonight as well. League One, Omaha and Lexington is on at 8. And we mentioned everything going on with World Cup. Early tomorrow morning, for those of you that are going to be up early, South Korea, Germany's on Big Fox at 6 a.m. FS1 has Morocco and Colombia. That will close out the group stage. Leagues Cup is tomorrow night. Telemundo will be simulcasting. Universo will be simulcasting, as will Peacock on the early morning stuff when it comes to what's going on in Women's World Cup action. So gossip from this morning, gossip, rumor, and innuendo. Arsenal have agreed to a deal with Brentford to sign David Raya, valued at £40 million. Brentford had been making deals trying to bring in second keepers and things like that, but now David Raya, $40 million to Arsenal. What does that mean for Matt Turner? That's the question. Matt Turner could be on a transfer. There's the full transfer to Nottingham Forest. That's one of the names that was being mentioned. Dean Henderson mentioned as well. So does Nottingham Forest get both? We'll see what happens. Manchester City want to sign. Really, Rick. You'll see if we get the Sabatis before the end of the show. Manchester City want to sign Josko Vardiel before facing Arsenal in Community Shield on Sunday. That's from the 4-letter paper. Take the information at your own peril. Manchester City keen on Rennes Belgium winger Jeremy Doku as a replacement for Riyad Mahrez. That comes from Fabrizio Romano. Manchester City also see Michael Olise as an option to replace Mahrez. Palace manager Roy Hodgson says it will be difficult to keep the France U21 international this summer. Bayern's £85 million bid for Harry Kane has been turned down. Spurs want more than 100. Bayern are confident of agreeing to a £90 million deal for Harry Kane, as Thomas Tuchel's planning for the new season with him on the roster. Kane expects to stay at Spurs this season if a deal with Bayern isn't agreed before their Premier League opener against Brentford. Atalanta's Rasmus Højlund has arrived in England before the £72 million move to Manchester United. That's from the 3-letter paper. Once again, take the information at your own peril. Chelsea have added Leeds United's Tyler Adams and Ajax's Edson Alvarez to their list of transfer targets. Levi Colwill moved closer to signing a new contract at Chelsea, posting a goodbye Instagram message to Brighton. It was a 6-year deal. That's what they're looking at from our friends at Talk Sport. Liverpool exploring a deal for Fluminense's midfielder Andre after having a second bid turned down by Southampton for Romeo Lavia. Lavia is being price tagged at $50 million. We talked about the nature of the blowing up of the self-inflation rates for Premier League sides and Premier League players. I'm still trying to figure out how Romeo Lavia is 50 and James Ward-Prowse is half that. That's just me. Liverpool considering Bayern Munich's midfielder Ryan Gravenberch and Manchester City's Calvin Phillips, as Southampton want $50 million for Lavia. Northern Ireland defender Johnny Evans set to be offered a 1-year deal by Manchester United after rejoining on a short-term basis this summer. Forest will listen to offers above $40 million for Brennan Johnson. Spurs, Brentford, Villa interested. So we'll see what happens there. Brentford, we know that they've got to come up with a solution. They're not going to have Ivan Toney until after the first of the year. Spurs is kicking the tires because they may not have Harry Kane. Villa needs firepower. Bournemouth have reopened talks with Bristol City over a £25 million deal for midfielder Alex Scott, having a £22 million bid rejected. 4-letter paper. Manchester City's Bernardo Silva, desperate to join Barcelona, but the La Liga champs' financial situation makes a move unlikely. PSG have triggered a €50 million release clause to sign Barcelona's Ousmane Dembele. West Ham have ended their interest in James Ward-Prowse because they're not prepared to meet Southampton's asking price. West Ham's not prepared to meet the asking price when Romeo Lavia is twice that? Okay. West Ham expected to agree to a deal for Ward-Prowse with a bid closer to $40 million. That comes from the Times. So you have the Sky Sports and the Times with back and forth ideas. If it gets close to 40, I'm guessing that West Ham will pull that trigger. Ajax have gotten in the way of West Ham's £14 million pursuit of Manchester City's winger Carlos Borges, 4-letter paper. Borges is close to joining Ajax in a deal worth €20 million. Everton could move for West Ham's 33-year-old striker Mikel Antonio after he failed to secure a move for Saudi Arabia. Galatasaray hope to complete an £11 million deal for Spurs midfielder Tanguy Ndombele. Leeds considering a move for Manchester United's 22-year-old English defender Brandon Williams. So that's where we are with with your gossip for the morning, at least on one aspect of the gossip. And in a way, to Ricky's point, we're still kind of killing time here, wondering if at 11 o'clock, maybe we get Saba Lobjanidze announced. We'll see what happens there. But, so Xande Silva, officially official. And that's a loan deal for the remainder of the season. So keep an eye on that. Once again, keeping an eye on the Lobjanidze tease, Lobjanidze signing, Lobjanidze what have you. But once again, yesterday, Nico started dropping names. This morning, Xande Silva, Lobjanidze, Tommy Scoops. So we'll see what happens there. We'll keep an eye on that news. Any other news? Trying to see Liverpool have contacted Fluminense over Andre. Jurgen Klopp wants FIFA to look at why the Saudi Arabian transfer window is open for almost 3 weeks after the Premier League window closes. According to FIFA, the Saudi window closes on September 20, but there's some confusion because some Saudi Pro League clubs were told earlier this summer that their window would close September 7. Klopp, quote, "The influence of Saudi Arabia is massive at the moment. Pretty much the worst thing is that the transfer window in Saudi Arabia is open 3 weeks longer." I'll give you my thoughts after we're done with the quotes. If I'm right, I heard something like that, then at least in Europe, that's not helpful. UEFA or FIFA must find solutions for that. It's already influential for us, but we'll have to learn to deal with it. In the past weeks, according to Sky, Liverpool have made £52 million selling Jordan Henderson and Fabinho to Saudi clubs. Football's a global sport. Not all leagues start and finish at the same time as Western Europe. Sky says, for example, Uganda's window closed on July 1. Tonga closes on Thanksgiving Day. Thailand closes on Friday. And that's the thing here. It's just because you end up with one window being at one part, one league says one thing, and then you end up with other leagues saying different things. Just because it doesn't fit your window doesn't mean that every window should be universal. You don't have Jurgen Klopp complaining about the MLS window yet. But just by comparison, I mean, he's not complaining about the Tongan window, the Ugandan window, or the Thai window. But because Saudi Arabia is rolling through, and it is, it's interesting dealing with the Saudis. This will be an interesting season with Saudi Pro and all the money that they're spending. I don't think it'll go the same as the Chinese Super League because I don't think the PIF necessarily cares. They'll find ways to write it off and just reinvest it and figure out other things. It's an entirely different scenario for me than the Chinese Super League, but we'll see. So Jurgen Klopp is mad right now that the window's open later in Saudi Arabia than it is with the Premier League. Don't think that's really going to change. Cardiff City forward Isaac Davies has joined Belgian Pro League Kortrijk on a season-long loan. Blackburn now accepted a fee of around $2.5 million from Luton Town for keeper Thomas Kaminski. Blackburn also expect defender Ashley Phillips to move to Spurs by the end of the week when the release clause comes into effect on Friday. Rasmus Højlund having the main part of his Manchester United medical today after initial testing on Tuesday. Formal announcement of his transfer from Atalanta expected by the end of the week, potentially over the weekend. Deal is worth an initial $64 million plus $8 million in add-ons. Player will sign a 5-year deal at Old Trafford with the option of a further 12 months. An hour ago, Manchester City have agreed on the €90 million transfer fee for Josko Vardiol. Not a record deal for a defender. Harry Maguire cost Manchester United $80. This is coming up at £77.6 million. City are spending just a few million more than the $75 million paid by Liverpool for Virgil van Dijk. Vardiol was a target for both Chelsea and Spurs. Gigi Buffon. Let's talk about Gigi Buffon for a second. Retired from football after 28 years. 28 years. Won a World Cup in 2006. Lifted 10 Serie A titles with Juve, Ligue 1 title with PSG. Buffon said in a statement, "That's all, folks. You gave me everything. I gave you everything. We did it together." Widely regarded as one of the greatest keepers of all time, ended his career where he started at Parma in Serie B. Struggled with injuries in his final season. Joined Juve from Parma in 2001. Spent most of his career with the club except for a season at PSG in 18-19 before returning to Turin, then to Parma in June of 2021. And so it's official. Gigi Buffon has retired at the age of 45. 45. Well done. Alex Oxlade-Chamberlain. Besiktas president Ahmet Nurçebi has met with the AOC at a hotel in London. The Turkish club are trying to convince him, who was released by Liverpool, to join them this summer. The initial bid from West Ham on Ward-Prowse, by the way, was $30 million. So Southampton's valuation is closer to 40, and they're going to try to get a deal done when it comes to James Ward-Prowse. Dennis Undav undergoing a medical with Stuttgart ahead of his move from Brighton. And Atalanta are exploring a deal to sign Gianluca Scamacca from West Ham and are prepared to pay €30 million. Inter Milan expected to go back with an improved bid worth $30 million after having a $20 million bid rejected. As it stands, Scamacca is leaning toward Inter if a deal can be agreed. Watford have signed Georgia international midfielder Georgi Shakvatadze on a season-long loan from Ghent. They hold the option to make the 23-year-old's move permanent at the end of the season. Shakvatadze capped 16 times by his country, 8 goals, 81 appearances for Ghent after joining them from Dinamo Tbilisi. Spent last season on loan at Slovan Bratislava. So that is all the stuff that has come in from the morning news while we were trying to get everything squared away this morning, while we were watching World Cup. So once again, remember, South Africa beats Italy 3-2, booking a spot in the World Cup last 16 for South Africa. Jamaica, the Reggae Girls, defense, goalless draw against Brazil. Marta, out. France and Panama, 9-goal thriller, and Bart talked about that one. Diani had a hat trick. Sweden, Argentina, Sweden 2, Argentina 0. Third win from 3 gives Sweden the showdown with the United States. And so keep an eye on all of that. I'm trying to see if there's any mandatory, possible, probable reading. Let's get into this. And this happened. Diego Godin. His farewell, and this is from our friends at The Guardian. Diego Godin's farewell marred by an attack by Vélez Sarsfield's own fans on the team. Uruguayan defender Diego Godin's farewell match marred by violence after his team, Vélez Sarsfield, lost against Huracan on Sunday, sparking a vicious attack by some of the Argentinian club's fans on their team's players, which they were assaulted at gunpoint. When the team returned to their training camp at the Via Olímpica, hours after the match, they were accosted by groups of their own fans as cars ambushed some of the players. Arrived at the stadium to get our cars and go home. We came out, and it was all dark when the cars of the Barra Brava came across us. There were probably 5 or 6 of them. The striker Gianluca Prestiani told ESPN on Monday, quote, "They hit me twice in the face while grabbing me by the jacket. I was too scared, and my teammates didn't want to go home in case they were followed. They even told one of them, 'Get out of the car or I'll shoot you twice in the legs,'" the 17-year-old forward said, adding that the incident is making him rethink staying at the club. The former Boca Juniors defender Leonardo Jara was the one who received the threat. Quote, "They crossed a car in front of me. They wanted me to get out of mine and said they were going to shoot me in the legs," he told a local radio program. The forward Santiago Castro and defender Francisco Ortega were also involved in the incident. Quote, club said in a statement, "Atletico Vélez regrets and strongly repudiates the intimidating situation experienced last night by some of our first-team players in the vicinity of the Via Olímpica." Local media reported that the players decided not to file a police complaint but were summoned for criminal investigation. And the coach, Sebastian Mendez, informed directors that the team would not return to training until security is guaranteed. With only 5 wins in 27 matches, Vélez finished 25th out of 28 after the defeat in the last round of the Argentinian Professional League. Godin, the decorated former Atletico Madrid and Uruguay defender, spent the 22 and 23 campaign with Vélez before deciding to retire. So we talk about the Barra Bravas, and that's another incident with the Barra Bravas. A couple of other notes. Elliot Anderson, Lewis Miley being back for first-team breakthroughs. Alex, just thought you might want to know, easing the need to sign a new midfielder. And I'm guessing that Alex was taking notes when they were here. Wolves head coach Julian Lopetegui is to suffer further frustration after missing out on his number one target, Alex Scott, the Guernsey Grealish, as he's being referred to. So Wolves and Julian Lopetegui. Andre Onana told to keep berating Manchester United defenders after a Harry Maguire mistake. Lisandro Martinez said the keeper clashed with England defender during defeat by Dortmund. Will fit in well at Old Trafford. Maguire got an earful from Onana during the second half of the friendly loss to Borussia Dortmund in Vegas on Monday. Onana's only been at United for a fortnight, according to James Ducker at The Telegraph, after signing from Inter, but David De Gea's replacement has already shown he's unafraid to bark orders at teammates and admonish them when required. Martinez played with Onana at Ajax, says United have signed a big character, and he encouraged the goalkeeper to keep speaking his mind. It's better for it, the Argentine center half said. If you're focused, you can fight with your teammates as well. You need to make sure everyone is really sharp, but nothing happened. It's a part of football. Also on the board, we mentioned Bayern Munich still short on the evaluation for Harry Kane. Ducker once again, and we mentioned Jurgen Klopp's concerns about the Premier League and the Saudi Pro. Premier League clubs are bracing themselves for a decade of lavish spending by the Saudi Pro League, according to Telegraph Sport. England's top flight clubs are working on the understanding the Saudis have enough money to keep hoovering up talent. Hoovering up, that's the words that Ducker uses, from across Europe for the next 10 years as they bid to transform the football landscape and avoid a similar fate to the Chinese Super League. What we were just talking about. Backed by the £600 billion PIF, which owns Newcastle, Al Nasser, Al Hilal, Al Ahly, and Al Ittihad. Saudis want SPL to become one of the top 10 leagues as a part of their Vision 2030 project. We've talked about that a long time. Ronaldo, Benzema tried to lure Mbappe with the standoff with PSG. In the main, the Saudi clubs, according to Ducker, have been targeting high-profile names in the twilight of their playing careers, and for as long as that remains the case, executives of Premier League clubs have indicated they feel the SPL will predominantly operating in a different market. So we'll keep an eye. But you're looking at Ronaldo, Benzema. Benzema's deal supposedly £100 million a year. Riyad Mahrez goes from Manchester City to join Al Ahly, who also signed Bobby Firmino. Jordan Henderson has moved, joining Al Ettifaq to be with Gerrard. And was followed by Fabinho, who left Anfield. Al Ahly agreed to a £16 million deal with Chelsea for Edouard Mendy. Koulibaly moved for 34 to Al Hilal. N'Golo Kante joined Al Ittihad after leaving Chelsea as a free agent last month on a deal reportedly up to £86 million a year. More encouraging for Premier League sides, SPL's provided an outlet in which to sell big earning outcasts they may otherwise have struggled to shift or attract substantial fees for. Chelsea being that example. Guardiola and Klopp believe the Saudi cash has already changed the market. Guardiola says they want to create a strong league. So far, they're the league who can do it. Right now with the Saudi League, I don't know how long they'll sustain it, but the players want to take this experience and play in that league. Saudi Arabia has changed the market. And that's true. But will it end up being something that will draw eyeballs? Will it? That'll probably be my question for tomorrow, by the way. My first question for tomorrow. if the Saudi Pro League is what it is, and they try to figure out viewing habits, what have you, would you watch? Would you watch the Saudi Pro League? If it's available here in the States, maybe on the CW to go with the LIV tour. Seems like a partner. Would you watch the Saudi Pro League? I don't know if I would. Maybe passing by, it's not going to be a priority. But that's the question. That'll be the QOD for tomorrow. Tomorrow, hopefully we'll have Bart Keeler on at 9:05, reaching out to the USL guys. Since I was running around last week doing high school football stuff, we'll see if John Morrissey and the guys from the USL show can join us tomorrow to discuss the month that was in USL. Nico at 10:30, so he can discuss Shande Silva and Saba Lobjanidze. Once again, we're still waiting for any kind of announcement on the Twitters involving Saba Lobjanidze. And we'll see if anything has happened outside of Nico. Goldweb with their 10 followers. So I'm sitting here trying to see if there's anything else that's happened. Anything else. Nothing yet. But remember, yesterday, about 5 o'clock in the afternoon, Nico reported Shande Silva and Saba Lobjanidze. Silva's on loan. Winger can play center forward. Lobjanidze, waiting to hear. And any kind, hint, any kind of hint, waiting to see. But as of after 11 o'clock, nothing yet from Atlanta United on Lobjanidze. Obviously, we'll talk about it tomorrow. Like I said, first hour, Bart Keeler. We've got Atlanta United. We got the end of transfer deadline day. We can talk about all that stuff at 9:30 tomorrow. USL guys hopefully joining us at 10 Eastern time. Nico Moreno, and we will talk to Nico about Shande Silva, Saba Lobjanidze, anybody else that made it across the line, Lucas Zelarayan, all of that stuff. We'll get into that tomorrow. Busy show, big show. And these are the kind of the shows that I like, when we just fly around and get total whiplash from all this stuff. So, thanks to Molly Lee and Luke Winstel in Brisbane. Thanks to Bart, who was in Sydney. Thanks to Chris Whalley, head coach of Lionsbridge, for stopping and pulling over to the side of the road to talk about the League Two title game against Ballard. And thanks to Dylan Butler, as always, for joining us for Wednesdays with Dylan at 10 o'clock. Thanks to you guys for putting up with the whiplash and all the different topics and everything. Like I said, tomorrow we'll talk transfer deadline day, everything else that happened there. And we will continue to rock and roll here. And we got World Cup to talk about tomorrow, too. So it's going to be another busy show. And we'll talk about Saba Lobjanidze and all that other stuff coming. So once again, thanks to all of you. And tomorrow, remember, tomorrow night, we've also got Atlanta United 2 Chicago Fire on the network. 6:45 pregame, 7 o'clock kick, shortly after 7. Jason will have the call. I'll have your halftime and your pregame. So on that note, like I said, I'm filibustering, waiting to see if the team's going to do anything on Lobjanidze. It looks like it's not going to happen, at least in the 11 o'clock hour. Should happen in short order. But thanks to all of you guys. Thanks to Jarrett, as always, for dropping by and discussing things and breaking all that stuff down. Then what we'll do, we'll come back at it again tomorrow, 9:05. So thanks to all of you. Be good. Play it safe. Mucha plata. Since it's the end of the show, we've made it, everybody. That means I get to do this. We'll do it again, 9:05 tomorrow.